I'm André Van Hal, the Curiosity Instigator, and author of the book, The Curiosity of Change, How to Bring Light to the Dark Side of Change. Today, we're going to be talking about how to bring curiosity to your job, to your life, and how curiosity can be the catalyst for having change made easy in your life. Let's learn to assess a situation instead of judging it, and bring humility into your workplace, into your life, to encourage your people, to bring you the ideas. And above all, management by wandering around so that you are the one seeking out what are the promise in your organization. Let's have some fun.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series. I'm your host, Dov Baron. I'm the founder of Full Monty Leadership, and I'm here to assist you tapping into the one thing in your business that changes everything. Let me ask you, are you committed to up-leveling your leadership? Well, on this episode, we ask, where have you been blinded to your own curiosity? What is it that you are seeing that causes you not to see so many other things? Stay tuned to find out. Remember, you can chat about this episode or any past episodes on our Facebook page. Just go look for Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast on Facebook. If you're a new listener, new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. As always, you can find us on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, wherever you tune into podcasts. And we always need your help in staying relevant. So please get over to wherever it is you subscribe to shows and go over there and do that. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show. You can also catch us on traditional radio stations across the United States every Monday and Thursday, all the way from Philadelphia to Colorado Springs and now in Washington, D.C. Look for us also on Roku TV with over 100,000 subscribers. If you're a regular listener, a regular viewer, a big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners with a potential reach of 2.5 to 4 million listeners for every single show. We're honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. Did you know that you can actually listen to us by saying to Spotify or saying to Google Home or Alexa, play Dov Baron podcast? Well, you can. Again, thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader, whether you're a CEO, C-suite leader, a leader in any form, you know that things are changing around you all day long. How do you cope with the change? How do we know how to cope with change? Change seems to be such a big challenge facing each of us. What is it that allows some people to have the agility and the flexibility in the context of change, while others become stifled with it? Well, stay tuned because you're about to find out. My guest on this episode is André Van Hal. He is a native of Argentina. André has worked at some of the most prestigious hotels in the world, including places like, would you believe, the Ritz in Paris, the St. Regis in New York. Additionally, he's managed some of the largest hotels, including the Hyatt Regency in Atlanta and in Denver. Before retiring, he was the CEO of the historic Denver Athletic Club. He's a graduate of the School of Hotel Administration at Cornell University. He's held such prestigious positions as Director of Quality, Executive Assistant Manager, Rooms and Executive General Manager, Professor of HR and CEO. His volunteer activity has afforded him the opportunity to serve on boards for the Chamber of Commerce, the United Way. He has also done some amazing groups, worked with amazing groups. But what is really interesting is that in 2011, he suddenly lost his sight. And that put him on a path to a brand new career. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the Chief Curiosity Investigator, André.
Hey, I love it.
Thank you, sir. It's good to have you here, my friend.
Well, it's awesome to be there.
So it's very cool to have you. Very cool to have you on the show. You and I spoke almost 6 months ago. It takes a while to get on here, I know, but I'm really looking forward to this conversation because at the heart of everything you do is something that is, for me, a foundational piece. I believe in deeply. I sign off every show with it, which is about curiosity. But before we dive into that, one of the things I like to ask my guests is who's been someone that we likely wouldn't even know who's been a major influence on your life. We've all got the famous influences, people will name people like Martin Luther King or whatever it might be, or Gandhi or whoever it might be. But very often there's somebody in a leader's life who's had a massive impact on them that most people wouldn't know. Who would that be for you, André?
It was a guy by the name of Gert Brandner. And Gert was a general manager at the Hotel Vier Jahreszeiten in Hamburg in Germany, where I started my career as a pot washer. And then I went to dishwasher and I worked through the kitchen. And then eventually all the positions in the hotel. I was doing a practicum, what they call in Germany, before I went to hotel school. And he was a graduate of the hotel school in Lausanne in Switzerland. And that is where I was going to go. And he was, I swear, clairvoyant, because in 1973, he told me, says, André, the future is in America. You want to go to an American hotel school because in Europe, you're going to learn service. In America, you're going to learn administration, management, and you want to learn management because that is where the future is. So he completely derailed my vision of my career to go to hotel school in Europe. And I came instead to go to hotel school in the United States. And it was mainly because of the guidance that I got from Gert Brandner. I owe him a lot.
What do you think that he saw in you that steered your direction that way? Because I'm sure he was a guide to many, but I wonder what he saw in you that pushed you in that direction.
I think I call myself the curiosity instigator, as you said in your introduction. And I've always been curious in my life, and I've always been asking questions, and I never was satisfied. One of the big challenges I had, I was working at this hotel. I was living in a pension, which is like a housing, very cheap housing, where it was 2 twin beds and a sink and a bathroom down the hall. So I was sharing the room with a room service guy, and he was 20 years old, and he had just gotten promoted to supervisor because he had passed an English examination. So we were out toasting, and I'm saying, well, here's to French. And he's going like, what do you mean here's to French? And I said, well, if you got supervisor with English, with French, you might get manager. And he's going like, no, I'm done. This is it. I'm engaged with a girl. I got my promotion. I'm done. And we were 20 years old. I could not understand how you get be satisfied at 20 years old with where you had arrived. It took me years to understand that Richard might be a happier man today than I am. Who is to tell? We need people like him that at one point in time say, this is it. But for me, it was not. And I think that is what Gert saw in me, that I was one of those people that would be seeking and always be looking for what is the next step.
Fascinating. Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I think it's such a blessing when somebody sees us. I think so often we are not seen, and I think it's one of the deep human needs is to be seen, not for the facade, not for even for the career, but somebody who sees within us something that we maybe don't even see in ourselves, because it's quote unquote natural to us. And Gelt saw that in you and brought that forward, which is wonderful. What a blessing.
It is. And I was working at the Ritz in Paris, and I saw the reservation for the dean of the hotel school from Cornell that he was coming to stay with us. And I made a point of being the one that checked him in that day. And he had me take a test in his suite and for admission to Cornell. And he saw something in me because he became my advisor. And then he helped me steer my career. He introduced me to people that launched my first job. So I think that finding these people that are willing to go far and beyond, completely altruistically, with no self-interest, is so crucial for all of our careers.
Absolutely. Fascinating. Now, you enter into this career, you do very well, you're top of the game, in the hotel world. You've worked in hotels in Europe and in the US and famous hotels and all the rest of it. And then in late 2011, by the late 2011, you've lost your eyesight.
I did.
So talk to us a little bit about that, because again, your path is very clear, and then suddenly it's not.
Correct.
So talk to us about, first of all, did you know you were going blind? And then when you did, when you went blind, how did that impact you in the context of the way you saw yourself?
It's funny because on August 15th of 2011, I was an avid cyclist. And I'd left with a bunch of friends to go and climb a mountain. And when I got to the top, I was ahead of my friends. So I laid down to rest. And that is what precipitated the drop in my blood pressure that stopped the circulation of blood to my eyes. So within 2 weeks, I was blind. And
wow. Within 2 weeks?
Yes.
So full eyesight, 2 weeks later, you're blind.
I'm blind.
Oh, my goodness.
So that was a significant wake-up call, as you can imagine. And the following morning when I woke up, I couldn't see below my chest. And so I went through a battery of tests with 4 different doctors. And at 9 o'clock, I was in the emergency room at the hospital with intravenous in my arm, trying to bring inflammation in my eyes down to try to salvage some of my eyesight, and all to no avail. As you can imagine, I was despondent at that moment. I was angry. I was scared. I was all those emotions rushing through me. And how do you provide for your family? You're told you're going to be blind in 2 weeks, and how do you continue to live? And it's one of the things that I talk about in my talk is that the difference between judging and assessing. And at that time there, I judged blindness because I was the first blind man I ever met. Okay.
Right.
And so I had a lot of prejudices and preconceived ideas about blindness. And have you heard of Erik Weihenmayer?
The name is vaguely familiar.
So Erik Weihenmayer is a blind guy that climbed Mount Everest. He climbed all the 7 tallest peaks in the world. Yes. He just kayaked the whole Grand Canyon. So somebody knew him and knew me, and they introduced us, and we went out on 2 tandems to go and do a bike ride. And when we stopped for lunch, he told me, he says, Andre, you've got to realize that the same guy that you were a month ago when you were sighted is one that you are today, just lost one of your senses. Don't let anybody put you down because of that. So that was another influencer in my life. And so because those words stayed with me, because at the time I was beating myself up. I'm lesser. I'm not who I used to be. I can't be what I used to be. But realizing that losing one of your senses is no big deal.
Well, I don't know if about it being no big deal, but can you talk to us and sort of share with us about the initial feelings? Because I think, blindness is obviously very literal, but it's also metaphorical.
Yes, it is.
And I think that so often we don't see what's in front of us. We don't see, and what we see is, to say the least, a narrow vision of what is real.
Yes.
And people talk a lot about heightened senses when you lose another sense, and so what I want to talk about it from the 2 points of view, which is, one is this, I have, quote, lost something, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And all the natural things that go along with loss, which are grief and anger and frustration and denial and all those kinds of things. And on the other side of it, what's on the other side of it? So talk to us first about the feelings that came up initially and what it is that you were telling yourself and how you were in your own way.
Okay, so I'm lying on the gurney at the hospital, staring at the ceiling. I'm crying. Right? I am despondent. I am like going through all of the emotions, and more than anything else, I'm scared because of my ignorance about blindness. And the funny thing is that at that moment, this weird thing happened to me, and I don't know where it came from, but I've been now to 4 doctors. They all dilated me to do these tests. I'm so dilated right now that I'm surprised that they brought me to the emergency room instead of the baby delivery room, right? So this silly thought came into my mind, and I smiled. And then I thought of a really bad joke, and I laughed out loud. And the nurse came running over, and says, "So what's matter? Is anything wrong?" Nothing is wrong. I just thought of a joke. So she says, "Okay, tell me the joke." So I told her the joke, and we start laughing. And she gets other nurses, and we start exchanging jokes. And that therefore that fleeting moment, even though my world was going darker by the moment, the darkness dissipated. It dissipated because I laughed. And I realized that I had a choice. You have a choice. You can go down and curse the darkness, or you can light a candle. And I had to make that choice. How I was going to handle it with my family? How was I going to handle it with my job? And was going to be a victim, or are you going to be somebody who rises above the circumstances? And it's a choice, and you've got to make it. And it was on that gurney that night that I realized it was up to me. And I love this. It's of course not mine, but I mean the saying that says, what are the 10 most powerful 2-letter words in the English language? And it is, if it is to be, it is up to me. So
yes.
If it is to be, it is up to me. And it's part of a lot of stuff that you talk about, right? I mean, it's you've got to have a purpose in life, and it's if you don't have a purpose, if you don't have a reason to want to continue. And my purpose was, I'm not going to let this blindness put me down. I'm going to rise above it.
That's certainly very admirable. But I don't know how common it is. I think about a year ago, I interviewed Richard Turner, who you may or may not know. Richard Turner, they made a movie about him called Dealt, D-E-A-L-T, and he is the world's best card mechanic, and he is blind, and has been blind since he was very young, and he can beat Vegas, he can beat anybody. And he's insanely talented, and his skills at holding these cards and reading these cards is amazing. But I asked him a question because I believe that for us to tap into the greatness that is within us, there is a part of us that believes something is impossible, whatever it might be for that individual, and somebody shows us it's not. You know what I mean? So with Richard, for instance, there was a guy who was the top card mechanic in the world who taught Richard some skills, but he taught Richard skills that the teacher didn't have. The teacher said later, he told Richard later that he didn't think it was actually possible, but because Richard didn't have that limitation, because he couldn't see, he learned the skill. He just believed what his teacher was telling him. And I wonder, as I listen to this about you, I wonder who was who told you, who gave you the belief in the impossible? Because I think that is one of the great gifts of our life, is making us believe in the impossible. When somebody does that, when one of my clients suddenly does something that they had previously seen as impossible, that is the most uplifting moment of my life. It makes my life fulfilled.
Yeah. It's interesting. I grew up in Argentina, as you mentioned. I went to a British all-boy boarding school. Yeah. And our sports were cricket, rugby, and soccer. Of course. And I was a head smaller than the next tallest guy. And I sucked. I sucked at sports. Okay. And I was a nerd. And so I was relentlessly bullied, and it was not fun. So I remember going literally to my dad and begging my dad to change my school. And my dad is the one who told me, and he says, Andre, I can change your school, but the baggage that makes you who you are is going to go with you to the new school. Have you considered that the one who needs to change is you? And I didn't get it. I was so angry with him, and I never got to make peace with him because he passed away shortly after it. And it's one of my big regrets that I've not been able to tell him how much I appreciate him telling me that. You know, how many times do we feel that we alone can solve the problems of the world? We can stand in midfield and hold back the entire offensive team just by ourselves. It's just not true. No. And we have to change. We have to adapt to the changing reality. And I think that part, when I was still in high school, that lesson that I learned from my dad, and that took time for me to absorb and entertain, is the one that taught me that, yes, the strength is inside of me. I am the one who is responsible. But, you know, conversely, when I went blind, and I was still seeing, I was told in 2 weeks you're going to be blind. And I was desperate to learn the skills on how do you transition into blindness, right? What skills do I have to acquire? So I found out I had to go to the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation to get a caseworker that would give me a trainer to use a cane. And I was humiliated, right? I am humiliated. I'm like, I'm not a caseworker kind of guy, you know, and whatever.
Right.
But in Bible study, we had been talking about, you know, what is humility? And one of the definitions I loved is the one that says is the ability to accept help. And I was not a humble man. I did not know how to accept help. So when I went to DVR, and the lady, the caseworker tells me, you know, I've got clients that have been blind for 5 years, and they're still in denial, and they don't want to learn how to use a cane. And you still can see, and you're already coming here for help to transition. And I think it is that drive, that push to stay a step ahead of the change that is coming at you, that has helped me all of my life.
Fantastic. That right there is, in and of itself, amazing insight. But, you know, to use my language, you got knocked on your butt
yes.
with suddenly becoming blind, but that wasn't the end of it. I mean, then you got bombed again because you were then diagnosed with cancer.
Yes.
So how long after being diagnosed blind does the cancer show up?
Well, so first I got crosswise with my board, and I lost my job. And so that was a blow.
Yes.
And then I got cancer. That was a year later. And then they did the surgery. They thought they got it. And then it metastasized that showed up in my lymphatic system. So then they put me on an experimental drug on a trial. And they typed my cancer, and it worked with the drug. And the doctor told me, says, you know, I'm not talking about extending your life. If this drug works for you, I'm talking about curing you.
Wow.
Which is a miracle in itself. You know,
but as a series of things, I mean, you've got blindness out of nowhere. You lose your job, you lose your career, something you've been dedicated to and have risen to the top in. That goes away. Then you get diagnosed with cancer. You have surgery. Okay, maybe it's gone. Great, fantastic. You know, still got no job, still got no eyesight. But okay, you know, at least I survived. And then it metastasized and shows up in your lymphatic system, which is pretty much as a write-off for most people. You know, when they hear I got lymphatic cancer, and yet you stay the course, and I realize, and let me be very clear, I realize it's not it's not this, oh, I'm fine and I'm going to make it work, because I know there's a whole process to that, because I know I've been through it myself. It's not an overnight decision. There's something that, there's an evolution and all that. I have said this many times about myself, that when I fell off the mountain, that was to wake me up from something and to wake me up to something. And I say that, my fall was literal, but many people's fall is not literal. It's a bankruptcy, it's a horrible diagnosis, it's a divorce, it's something that is devastating. And I said, I believe this with every fiber of my being, that it is there to wake you up from something and to wake you up to something. Do you see that in your case? Do you see there was something this horrible series of events was there to wake you up from something and to wake you up to something?
It's so wise, and I love your outlook on that, and it's so true. And it's scary how dark the world gets for you once you get down into that the darkness of despair and self-pity and hate of the world and why me. And I'm an avid cyclist, and a friend of mine called me up and he says, Andre, why don't you and I do this 100-mile bike ride on a tandem? And I am going like, no way. I am a CEO. I'm in charge. There's no way I'm giving up my front seat and going to go into the back seat of a tandem looking at your butt all day long. And he's going like, what? You won't even see it, right? And but it was that push to have to understand that I can be proud on the couch at home, or I can give in and get onto the back seat of the tandem and adapt to the new reality. And that was with blindness, right?
Yes.
So you have to adapt to realize, I was an avid photographer. I had all the cameras and the lenses and I traveled with cases of stuff. I did videos. So it was my hobby, and it breaks my heart that I can't see those pictures anymore and that I can't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So you choose to stay in the darkness of what you can't do. You live into the future of what you can do, and you push yourself into reinventing, into seeing new opportunities. I just finished Saturday. I finished a 450-mile bike ride over the Rockies. Okay, it's called Ride the Rockies. And, it was over 40,000 feet of elevation gain over 7 days.
Wow.
And 450 miles. And it's an epic, beautiful ride. And but you've got to push yourself to get there. And it's not going to happen if you stay feeling sorry for yourself. So the fall of the mountain for me was, of course, the blindness and learning to have to adapt, and learning to use a tandem instead of a regular bike. Now I ski with a guide and a blocker, but I still ski. I can't do the trees anymore, but it's awesome because now I have an excuse to not do the bumps anymore.
Amazing. Fantastic.
So that sort of stuff, every transition into the blindness, right? But then cancer comes, and cancer hits, and it hits you. My father died of lymphosarcoma.
Oh,
and so it's scary. My dad died when he was 60. I am 65. I've already outlived him, but I got diagnosed just as I was about to be 61. And so my thought is, okay, I'm going the way of my dad, and he had 7 siblings. They all grew up in Holland, and they all died of cancer.
Wow.
And so I'm going like, all right, it's my turn. But you can't do that. And I am blessed to be surrounded by people that are awesome, caring, wonderful people. My wife is being one of them, and but it's one of the very, very influential people in town found out that I was going to go blind, and he was on vacation on Long Island, and he called me from Long Island, and he says, Andre, at CU Medical, at the University of Colorado Medical, there is this unbelievable doctor that is doing just cutting edge research. He's impossible to see. I just called him, and he's going to make a window to see you. And then another guy who gave so much money to the campus that the campus is named after him, his son calls me up and he says, I just called this doctor. So the doctor calls me and he says, who the hell are you? And I'm going, I'm nobody. I'm absolutely nobody. But knowing that there's people out there that care for you and that are willing to get out. And that's, I don't believe that there is a God up there that is waiting for 100 people to pray for me. And when 100 person come in, he's going to, go in and help me out. But knowing that there's people out there that care That is what I draw strength from. Okay, so call it the power of prayer, but what I look at is the power that of people saying, "I care for you, Andre, and we're going to try to do things to help you succeed." And it takes a village, and I believe so. I'm trying to pay it back now, and I help blind people and people that are having a hard time transitioning. And with my new career as a motivational speaker, that is what my ambition in life is to bring light to that darkness of people that they see change as something negative, as something. I see that change, blindness is not my enemy. It's how I deal with it.
Absolutely.
So when you fell off the mountain, how did you choose to deal with it?
Mm-hmm. That's always it. It's what we get to. Now, you discuss a lot about tapping into curiosity. You said that is your thing. And as I said, I sign off every show talking about that. So I believe that curiosity is probably one of the top 5 leadership skills any leader will ever have.
Yes.
But you talk about it as why curiosity is so important and powerful as times are changing. Talk to us a little bit more about that, because it's obvious that, what I'm hearing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that, and again, forgive me if I'm wrong, but that you recognize there was a certain arrogance about you before, and that you couldn't ask for help, and that then the humility came, and with the humility, it seems like that is what I'm hearing, at least, is that is what birthed curiosity in you. And I don't know if that's correct, but if it is, talk to us about curiosity and why you describe it as an art. Tell us about why it's an art and why it matters so very much as we move into the future.
It's Albert Einstein was asked, how come you're so smart? And his response was, I'm not smart. I am curious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just finished listening to Leonardo da Vinci's book, and he was so inherently curious, and look at how much he achieved. So to me, when I went blind and I lost my job, I had to reinvent myself. You're going like, okay, so what do I want to do? So I started to think, okay, I'm going to go and find another job. Well, I'm about to be 60 years old. I'm blind. And who the hell wants to hire a 60-year-old guy, right, that is blind to run a hotel or to run an exclusive club? So I tried, and I told my wife, I said, I don't know that I want to go to I lived in 12 cities. I worked in 12 cities in 3 continents.
Yes.
And I don't want to go and learn another city as a blind man. I know Denver. I understand Denver. We've got support. We've got friends. So I want to stay here. So there was a limitation of my curiosity, right? I mean, there I said, I'm not curious about learning a new city. But I'm going like, what am I going to do? How am I going to earn a living? And so I thought about being a motivational speaker, and I thought, okay, I'm going to talk about service, because service I know how to do service forward, backwards. I worked in some, as you said, most prestigious hotels in the world, but I couldn't get motivated. It was not inside of me. I've done it all my life. I want to do something different. So I said, well, who's gone through more change than I have? I've lived in 12 cities, 3 continents, was married, divorced, remarried, had 2 babies, and go blind, get cancer. So I said, I'm going to talk about change. So then I said, okay, so change is all about attitude, right? How do you deal with change? But as I thought about it, I go like, okay, how do I tell Dov that wake up your attitude, get your attitude going towards change? And I did not know how to stand in front of an audience and change their attitude. And as an executive, part of my training was you never tell an employee your attitude sucks. Okay, you tell them, you say you don't show up on time, you don't ask for new assignments, blah blah blah. So you give them facts, you give them things that they can wrap their arms around. And attitude is not a fact. Attitude is a state of mind. So I started to do some research and saying, okay, so who speaks on curiosity and what angles do they have? And I found nobody that linked change with curiosity. Nobody.
Right.
And to me, those things are so interwoven that they're completely a part of each other. You cannot bring change about if you're not curious. Okay, so I say that there's three kinds of change, right? That's environmental change. I got cancer, that's environmental thing, or a flood comes and destroys your home, whatever. Okay, so that's environmental change. Then there's purposeful change, right? So people set out to make change happen. And either you're one of the ones that makes a change happen, or you're going to be one of the ones who other people change is going to affect you. Absolutely. And then there's, of course, disruptive change. The disruptive change can be environmental or purposeful, okay? Just as an order of magnitude. So where do you want to be in the change thing? The environmental thing I discussed earlier, and you can't do anything about it. It's coming at you, so handle it, okay? Right. And find the ways to handle it. But purposeful change, that is where everything happens, is in the purposeful place. And you can't be purposeful about change if you're not inherently curious, if you don't create an atmosphere of curiosity at the workplace. And so many times in my career, I was at the Vier Jahreszeiten, and after a long time in the back of the house, I finally make it to commis de rang, which is a fancy word for busboy. And I had this idea, and I'm running to the Metro D, and I'm going, Hamburg, I just have been thinking. He says, halt. I don't pay you to think, I pay you to do. So go and do. Now, how many times has that happened to us in our lives, from our parents, from our teachers, from our bosses, right? What is boss backwards? Double SOB, right? So, yeah. I mean, it's such a killer of initiative at a workplace. And I understand it. You are at your desk. Your budget is due. You've got a board meeting tomorrow. You've got a crisis somewhere else. You've got to be at the event. And here comes this employee with an idea. And that's the last thing you want to do, is having to carve out another 5 minutes out of your day to listen to them. Right. But if you don't do that, if you don't create an atmosphere where an employee can go and grab the SOP manual off of the shelf, go and find the proper SOP, open the manual, take out the page, photocopy it, put the original back, and rewrite it the way they think it should be, and set up a system to evaluate that suggestion, then your company is doomed. Because in today's world, if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got, right? So, I mean, in the old days, that worked. If you were a saddle maker to the king, for 300 years, your company would be saddle maker to the king, right? Yep. But in today's world, if you always do what you always did, you are out of business. Yeah. You've got to be changing. You've got to implement it. And if it isn't broken, break it. Yeah. Because somebody else out there is working with breaking it and doing it differently and doing it better. So to me, then curiosity became the thing to speak about, and to say, wake up your curiosity, but particularly encourage your team to be curious, to challenge you. You're the division head, the department head, the supervisor, but you're not the one that's supposed to supply all of the answers and all the solutions. It's your team. They are the ones that have the ideas. Where the rubber meets the road is your workers. So set up that curiosity. I was working in a hotel. My general manager comes over and says, Andre, the brakes of van 3 are squealing. I went, oh, great. Thanks for letting me know. I said, how do you know? He says, oh, Tommy, the driver told me. So I wrote the work order and got the van out to be serviced. And I ran into Tommy. And I'm going, hey, Tommy, thanks for letting us know about the squealing brakes. But how come you went and told the boss instead of telling me? He says, Andre, he asked. Wow. What a revelation for me, right? I mean, ask, be curious, walk around, talk to your team, talk to your people, and you will find out stuff about your workplace. And they will give you the ideas because they are the ones that know what is going on so much better than you do.
Right, so and that's my curiosity. That's wonderful, because that's one of the things I speak about so often, is that the problem with open door policy is it's passive, and people won't come in that door because I always say there's a force field, and on the other side of that force field is the person who can fire you. So you're not going to cross it. Doesn't matter that the door is open, but how do you swing the door open, which is a different thing, which is this piece which you just said, which is the boss / leader who asks, the boss slash
Yes.
leader who is willing to say, tell me, I'm interested, I
Yes.
want to know. And then when you're told, to make sure you don't have a bad reaction to that is vital. And that's leadership. And I just love that you know, that with that story there, which beautifully illustrates it. The reason the person told that guy was because he asked, and you may have had a very open door policy about it, but you didn't ask, and that's different. It's passive. And so we
Yes.
like to let ourselves off the hook and say, well, you know, you can come in my office anytime and tell me. Well, I'm busy too. But if you come and ask me, I'll definitely tell you. And that is, you know, that in and of itself, right there, we could end the show and go, that's the lesson.
That's
Want to know,
MBWA,
ask.
right? MBWA, management by wandering around.
Yeah, exactly. Manage by wandering around and asking questions, not by micromanaging, but by asking as you walk around and really finding out that. Now, there are many psychological reasons, and I've talked about this on other shows, about why human beings resist change and what that brings up for them. But I'm really interested in what you see, particularly from the context of somebody who has, shall we say, been forced to change.
Right.
So, you know, talk to us about why, you know, in your learning, why you see that we resist change, and I think anybody who is alive realizes it's unavoidable. The time of day changes, the weather changes. There's things you have no choice in, yet we all resist change. So talk to us about what you've learned about resisting change.
You know, so change. I mean, there's a certain inertia in doing this everything the same way. Okay, and so we like our breakfast, and it's a toast, and it's a slice of cheese, and it's a piece of fruit, and a cup of coffee or whatever, right? And it's easy. We don't have to think about it. We drive to work the same way, the same route, and we see the highway is completely plugged up, but we still get on the on ramp because this is the way that we go to work, right? It's ingrained in us, and it takes effort to do something differently.
Absolutely.
I like to joke, you know, and I say, you know, to have the guts to try different underwear. You know, if our dad wore whitey tighties, then we think we have to wear whitey tighties, and that is the underwear. And we have these preconceived ideas about what other underwear is, or what people will think about me if I wear that kind of underwear. So I joke about it because it's something that's so ingrained in us. And so to me, change is resisted because it has inertia, and it's easy to go with it, to go with the tradition, with the way it was being done, instead of saying, okay, so what happens if I go a different way to work today? And so what happens if I have fried eggs for breakfast this morning instead? Okay. And of course, those are silly little examples. But when the new software comes and they update your iPhone or your telephone, okay, so forth, oh, we get so frustrated. It used to be this, and I loved it the way it was. And why did they have to change it? It's stupid. Okay. But there's inherent reasons on why it is changing. And put up with it. Learn the new way, because otherwise you're going to be left behind. I was at the St. Regis, and computers were coming in. This was in 1981. And we had secretaries and so forth. And then they brought computers, and they told us, okay, here's a computer, okay, whatever. Now you're not going to have a secretary. You're going to share. 3 of you executives are going to share a secretary. And my boss, I don't know how to type. I don't want to learn how to type. I don't want to learn the computer, okay, whatever. He was left in the dust, okay. He, you know, he resisted for 3 or 4 or 5 years. You can continue. But eventually, if you don't get back on that horse,
exactly,
the world will leave you behind. And so we resist change because we love going with the way it was. And it takes effort to get off this track to move on to this other track. It takes a lot of work in some cases. And so why do we have to do something different? Why do I have to go to a different? So why did you change the layout of the store? I knew that oatmeal was here. Why is it now over there? Well, because we now decided to put all the breakfast stuff together instead of whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my thing is that through curiosity, you can then realize and think, why did they change it? What is the advantage of the new thing? So I can curse the fact that I can't do photography anymore. I can curse the fact that I cannot be on a single bike anymore. Or I can celebrate the fact that people are willing to be on a tandem with me, to take me out on a bike ride, and still feeling the burn on my legs and the sweat going down my back, right, and the wind going through my hair. So change is wonderful. Change is fun. Change is scary. Change is crappy. And where you fall, it's all of that. It's all of that. How you choose to dive in is your choice.
Yeah, absolutely. What was I think we touched on many of the things because even as you're talking about it and change is part of our natural evolution, as you said, that we resist. But what was one thing you did for a long time that actually blocked you from success, from the level of success that you actually could achieve?
The old adage says, get what you inspect and not what you expect. And so, I believe in trust and verify.
You believe in, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Trust and verify. So trust, when people tell you I'm going to do this, trust them. Then go verify. And I made a huge faux pas in my career one time, and I just become CEO of an organization. And we had a childcare center that was fully licensed, 120 babies. And one of the teachers came to see me. And so she went 2 levels above her to come and talk to me. But she says, oh, we have a Hispanic boss, and it's so good. And finally, somebody speaks Spanish. And we have a problem. In childcare, in my classroom, we're over capacity and under ratio. And I'm like, whoa, I have no idea what you're talking about. He says, well, we've got too many babies for the amount of teachers we have, and we have too many babies for the capacity of the classroom. Oh, Maria, I'm so sorry. Let me handle it. So I called her boss, and I'm going like, hey, Don, Maria told me, oh, Maria, she's a problem employee. She always has complaints. She never is happy. I'll handle Maria. So I called Maria's boss's boss, the division head, and I told her the conversation. Oh, Maria, we will handle it. A week later, an inspector from the Department of Health and Human Services came to see me and says, we had a complaint that you're over capacity and under ratio. I just went downstairs and verified, and indeed you are. And you're given 1 week to correct the situation, or we're shutting you down. So what happened there is I allowed the judgment of Don and Terry, of Maria, to cloud my ability to handle the situation. So I let their judgment impact me, and I judge Maria based on what they said. If I had asked Maria, and I said, Maria, bring me the roster of how many registered babies we have, bring me the capacity of the room that is in a frame in the room, and bring me the law that says what the ratio should be. And in 2 minutes, right? In 2 minutes, I could have verified. And I was too lazy to do that, right? So we can't verify everything that happens, but when an employee has the guts to come to you and go 2 levels above themselves to bring a complaint, why was I so lazy? How is it excusable? Right?
Yeah.
So
that's very insightful. Yeah.
So it's like you said, another thing that I learned in my career is from Hyatt. We did something we called Hyatt Talks. And that is every month, my secretary would set me up to have lunch with 10 random employees. They would come to the fine dining room, dress up. They would be on the clock, so they get paid. And I was there for 2 hours. So for 2 hours, they could ask me anything they wanted or tell me anything they wanted. But it takes time to build the trust with your management team that when an employee comes in from housekeeping and says, we don't have enough sheets. Okay. But when you go back to the division head and said, you know what? I just was told we don't have enough sheets. And rather than that manager running back to the employee, why the hell did you tell them we don't have enough sheets? Now I am in trouble. Okay, whatever. Is to trust that they understand that I'm on their side. I'm not blaming. I'm part of the team, and we have a problem. Let's go and solve it. Right? The problem is if we don't have enough sheets, now I have to work the laundry overtime to produce those sheets. When the housekeepers go up to the floors, they got a cart that is empty, doesn't have enough sheets. So now I have to hire runners to run sheets up to the housekeepers as they come out of the laundry. Now the housekeeper has to go to the same room twice, once to strip it or whatever, and then go back to make the bed. Now I've got early arrivals that can't get into the rooms because I don't have sheets. What is the cost of not having enough sheets? It's enormous. Yes. Why don't I? It's a silly thing, right? I mean, a silly example. But the world is full of those examples. So absolutely, open yourself up to that curiosity. Go and listen to them and get yourself into a situation where your entire team understand that I believe that the pyramid is inverted. Absolutely. It is my job. It is my job to create the road for my team to ride on. Right? So if I don't pay the taxes, if I don't have electricity, if there's no money in the bank to do the payroll, if there's no ketchup in the restaurant and no sheets in housekeeping, they can't do their jobs. So I have to first do my job before they can do their job. And if I do a poor job, they have a bumpy ride. So you need to implement a culture where it is safe for the employee to challenge you and to say, you know what, this is failing in the system because you have not done this. And you have to be man enough, humble enough to thank them and to say, I appreciate you letting me know. And it takes a long time to build that trust within an organization.
Fabulous. Andre, tell me, what do you find yourself most curious about presently at this point in time?
So I want to grow my business as a speaker. And so I totally redid my videos, redid my photography. I just finished a book, and this is going to be the cover of the book. And it was I changed the title. The Curiosity of Change: How to Bring Light to the Dark Side of Change. And so my curiosity now is how. You know, it's interesting. I was running the Hyatt in Atlanta, and the guy was running the Hyatt, the Hilton in Atlanta. And we both lived in the hotel with our babies. So we got to be friends. And he grew up in the Hilton. And his dad was a senior vice president with Hilton. So he was a junior manager in Hilton. And the food and beverage director says, kid, come with me. And there's this guy that wants to play in our bar. And he's got this goofy name of John Denver. Okay. And even John Denver had started playing in bars and dives, right? And so forth. Sure. So how do you launch a career as a speaker and get discovered? And so that is, to me right now, it's my curiosity is I'm a member of the National Speakers Association and Toastmasters or whatever, trying to perfect my trade that I get to be in a respectable place and so that I can help others. I'm speaking tomorrow to a National Leadership Academy, and it's all high school kids come from all over the country. And I love sharing my view about change and curiosity. And so I speak now maybe 24 times a year or something like that to audiences, and I want to take that to 100.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
So as we move towards the end of the show, and we're going to move into a bit of a lightning round here. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Fabulous. So Andre, tell us what makes Andre cry.
What makes Andre cry? Well, being told he's going to go blind, seeing his first son being born, and being in that hospital. I cried like a baby when that baby popped out. It was the most emotional moment of my life. And when my wife said, I do, that was a hugely emotional moment in my life. Yeah, I think that's what makes André cry.
Thank you. What is the most difficult inner demon that you had to battle?
Humility. And it's, you get to the point where you think that your poop doesn't stink, right? And that you've got to realize that that guy in organizations, what we fail to see is that the lowest paid individual is many times the face of the corporation, is where the
absolutely
that employee at the Apple store is the face of Apple. And
absolutely.
So how do you treat that employee is so crucial. Having the humility of understanding that all the plans you make, everything you do, all depends on how that employee delivers the service. And so to understand, to treasure that person, that is one of the key things for me, that it's having to give up the thing where I am in the throne and they're all there for me, and it's the other way around. I am there for them. It's my job to pave their road.
Fabulous. What there's a lot to leadership, and I think that oftentimes we forget that. But I think that leadership is got a lot to do with courage. What is your most courageous leadership decision?
Wow. And it's, I don't know if it was the most, but when I worked for one of the corporations that I worked, and they inculcated into us, we're not Marriott. Marriott is a very prescribed company. They go by the book and everything has to be tested. Yeah. But we are entrepreneurial. We want entrepreneurial initiatives. And so I took certain initiatives, and then like in one case, I had a revolving restaurant on top of my hotel, and it was across the street from a convention center. But the conventioneers didn't know it was there, and it was empty. It was a special occasion kind of restaurant. It was not an everyday place. So I had the side of the building that was the entire elevator shaft all the way up and down. It was concrete. And I'm going like, why don't I put a red banner there that says restaurant with a hand up that shows up like this? And the restaurant filled up, okay? I mean, people, it was right facing the convention center, and the business boomed. I went to pick up my regional vice president from the airport, and we're approaching the hotel, and he says, what the hell is that? And I told him, oh my God, my business is booming or whatever. He says, take it down. What do you mean take it down? He says, you didn't ask me. And I go, I didn't have to ask you. It's my hotel, and he had me bring a crane and take the damn thing down because I had asked him. And 6 months later, he goes like, what's happening with your restaurant revenue? And I said, well, I took the sign down. He says, well, put the damn thing back up. And I disregarded I'm going to do what I'm going to do because I am given a mission. My mission is to make my hotel successful, and to hell with you. If you're my vice president and you're going to play those kinds of games with me, I'm not playing the game, and I'm not going to try and get daddy to give me permission for everything that I want to do. So to hell with you. Mm-hmm. And so my feeling is, so to me, a key word in leadership is initiative. Okay. Yes. So I don't care how curious you are. Okay. But if you don't have purpose and if you don't have initiative, you don't get anywhere. So having ideas is one thing. And another thing that I think is very crucial is what is more important in an organization. Is it intellect or is it curiosity? And I think that both play a significant role in your organization. The intellect is one that's going to prevent you from repeating the mistakes of the past. But that same intellect that wants you to prevent the mistakes of the past is the one that's going to stop you from taking action because Absolutely. You remember the mistakes of the past. Exactly. So you've got to make room for both intellect and curiosity, but you can't allow the intellect to kill the curiosity.
That is a fabulous point and a fabulous way for us to finish. That was amazing. What a great point to, a real highlight to finish on. Thank you so much for that. Andre, it's been a pleasure and an honor having you with us. I'm really grateful that you got to share your insights with us. Thank you so much for all of that. Please tell our viewers and our listeners where they can find out more about you and all your wonderful resources, how to get in touch with you, whatever it might be.
Sure. I've got a wonderful website at andrevanhall.com. So it's AndreVanhall. So vanhall.com. And there I have everything, sample videos and photography, phone number, etc., etc. AndreVanhall.com.
Thank you. We'll make sure, of course, that we put that link into the show notes so you can reach out directly to Andre and find out more about him, find out more about his speaking opportunities and how you can get in touch with him and all the wonderful things that he has available to you. So we want to thank you, Andre. It was a pleasure and an honor, sir. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show.
It was great. And you, of course, as a dear listener, viewer, you can hang out with other conscious leaders and chat about this episode or any other past episode by simply going to our Facebook page. Just look for Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. Just put that in the search of Facebook and you'll find us. You can also find out about hiring me, Dov Baron, as your speaker or strategist for you personally or as for your organization by going to fullmontyleadership.com/consulting or fullmontyleadership.com/speaking. The research consistently shows that even the fastest growing companies face exactly the same challenges as you do, that they're spending time, money, energy, attracting, training, and developing talent, but they also have them leave at an alarming rate. If you're frustrated with investing in the training and development of your talent, only have them leave before you get your ROI, then come talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets inside of your organization by tapping into purpose. fullmontyleadership.com, because you can't outsource authenticity. And also you can stop by the Matrix, matrix.fullmontyleadership.com, and get your authentic leadership matrix self-assessment tool. You don't need a $W, just matrix like the movie, .fullmontyleadership.com. That assessment will show you the 5 areas of leadership and where your real strengths are. It's valued at $197. It's absolutely free to you as a listener. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Until next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about where you have blocked your own curiosity. Your curiosity is one of your greatest strategies in leadership. And as Andre said, curiosity is vitally important, but make sure that you follow it up with some courage of implementation. I'm Dov Baron, and I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.